My name is Rachel Whitmore, and when my brother's fiancée told me I wasn't refined enough to be part of her new life, I smiled. But months later, at her rehearsal dinner, I stood calmly, raised my glass and said, "Monica, since there's no room at your table for me, there won't be a home waiting for you after the wedding." Then I canceled the $1 million house deed in front of everyone. Let me know in the comments, where are you watching from? And have you ever been pushed out of your own family by someone new? It all started with a dinner I didn't want to attend. We were at my childhood home in Asheville, North Carolina, the place where we built tree forts and raced bikes down steep gravel hills. That creaky old wooden table in the dining room had survived burnt Thanksgiving turkeys, birthday cake meltdowns, and years of laughter echoing through its worn surface. And tonight, it was the battlefield for something I hadn't seen coming. Ben, my younger brother and favorite human on earth, had invited me over to meet her. Monica, his fiancée, the one he met at a corporate seminar in Atlanta and fell for so fast we were all still catching up. Mom had made her famous herb-roasted chicken, and the place smelled like garlic, rosemary, and mild tension. The table was set with Mom's good china. I brought a bottle of Pinot Noir. I also brought every ounce of sisterly grace I could muster. For Ben, Monica showed up in a sleek ivory blazer and heels that didn't belong on our creaky front porch. She looked like someone who had never gotten her hands dirty and didn't intend to start now. "Rachel, this is Monica," Ben said, clearly trying to project warmth through the stiff air. Monica smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Oh," she said lightly, tilting her head. "I thought you'd be more refined." Silence fell like a dropped knife. I smiled politely, my jaw tight. "Guess your expectations will have to adjust." Ben cleared his throat and gestured toward the dining room like we could erase what just happened. We sat, forks clinked. Polite noises filled the space where affection usually lived. "So," Monica continued, lifting her wine glass like it held secrets. "Ben tells me you're a photographer, that's cute." "Cute," I bit back a retort. "I run a studio in Black Mountain," I replied evenly. "Specialize in editorial and documentary. Smithsonian ran a feature of mine last year." Monica blinked slowly. "Oh, so it's not just weddings and babies," Ben laughed awkwardly. "Moan Ratch's work is incredible. She even shot that political campaign upstate, remember?" "Oh right, the one where they had all the drama, scandal photos, right?" She gave a little shrug. "I guess everyone needs a side hustle these days." That was it. I put my fork down. "Don't disrespect me in my own family's house," I said, my voice low and steady. "You don't know me, and from the sound of it, you haven't tried." Monica smirked slightly and took a slow sip of wine. "I'm just being honest. And I'm being generous," I said, looking at Ben. "So maybe let's steer this dinner back to something less personal before someone says something they'll really regret." Mom jumped in with a too loud laugh and asked Ben about their honeymoon plans. Dad tried to change the subject to the recent college football rankings, but it was too late. The shift had already happened. The warmth drained from the evening, and what was left was a room full of forced smiles and burning cheeks. Ben looked down at his plate. Monica speared a piece of chicken and acted like the table hadn't just cracked down the middle. I excused myself early, said I had an early client shoot. But the truth was, I couldn't sit at that table and pretend she hadn't tried to plant a flag in ground that had been mine for decades. This was just the beginning, and I knew it. That night, after leaving dinner early, I drove the long, winding road back to my place in Black Mountain with the windows cracked and no music on. Just the sound of cool mountain air cutting through my thoughts. I kept replaying the moment Monica called my career cute, like it was a hobby I picked up after yoga class. But what stung more than anything was the way Ben just let it happen. I'd barely kicked off my boots when my phone buzzed. "Ben, can I come by? I'm outside." I opened the front door, and there he was, standing on my porch with the same sheepish look he wore when we were kids and he'd broken something of mine. This time it wasn't a snow globe or a camera lens, it was my dignity. "Ratch," he began, stuffing his hands in his pockets. "I'm sorry, I should have said something." I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "You think she's just nervous," he said quickly. "She doesn't always come off right when she's trying to impress people." I gave a small laugh. If that was her version of impressing me, I'd hate to see her on a bad day. Ben exhaled hard. I know she was rude, and I'm not excusing it, but please don't let this mess ruin everything. I need you at the wedding, Rachel." I looked at him then, really looked. My brother, the lanky kid who used to cry when I left for summer camp, was now this grown man, about to start a life with a woman who couldn't hide her disdain for me even for one meal. Ben. You remember what we promised each other when we were little? I asked, softer now. He smiled, the corner of his mouth twitching up. That we'd always have each other's backs and build houses next door. Exactly. I reached for his arm, giving it a light squeeze. I meant that you're my only brother, my only sibling. I want you to have a home filled with love, not tension. That's why I'm giving you the house. His head jerked back. Wait, what? I nodded. The one on Ridgeview, the Mountain View place. I've been renovating it for a while now. It's yours. I mean, it will be. I haven't told anyone yet. I was going to surprise you both at the rehearsal dinner. He stared at me like I'd spoken another language. Rachel, are you serious? Dead serious, I said. It's time someone gave you a good start. You've always dreamed of raising a family surrounded by trees and sky and peace. I can't promise peace, I added with a smirk, especially not if Monica's invited to Thanksgiving. But I can give you the rest. Ben blinked fast. Then suddenly he stepped forward and wrapped me in the kind of hug that presses your ribs and makes you feel like a kid again. You're the best sister anyone could ask for, he whispered. I felt his words settle into my chest, warm and heavy. I wanted to believe they were enough to build something on. Even if Monica's side eyes and smug smirks told me I might be building that future for someone who didn't want me in it. Still, I held on to him and said, just promise me you'll fill it with good memories, the kind Mom and Dad gave us. I will, he said, I swear. And in that moment I wanted to believe him more than anything. We sat on the porch swing for a while after that, wrapped in quiet. The stars over Black Mountain never failed to calm me. I pointed out constellations, and he listened like he used to when he was little, his head resting back, legs stretched out like he had nowhere to be. You think she'll ever like me? I asked eventually. I wasn't even sure why I said it. It slipped out like a sigh I didn't mean to be heard. Ben hesitated. She will, he said. Eventually, she's just hard to read sometimes. Right, hard to read. That's what we were calling blatant disrespect now. Still, I let it go, for his sake. Eventually, he stood, brushing his hands off on his jeans. You're coming to the wedding, right? I gave him a sideways look. Try and stop me. As he walked down the porch steps, he turned back once more. Thank you, Rachel, for everything. I waved him off, smiling. Go home, lover boy. Try not to tell Monica about the house yet. Let me have my big opera moment at the rehearsal dinner, he laughed. Deal. And then he was gone, headlights cutting through the dark like some hopeful promise headed back to Asheville. But as the porch light flickered above me, I stayed seated in the swing. Something heavy still lingered in my chest. Not sadness exactly. Not yet. Just a feeling I couldn't shake. That I was giving too much to someone who wouldn't see the cost until it was already too late. In the weeks after that porch conversation, I threw myself into the details. The practical, legal, expensive kind of love. The house in Black Mountain wasn't just a property. It was a piece of me. A cedar-shingled, wraparound porch dream I had bought with the proceeds of my first big photography exhibit, long before Ben had even met Monica. When I first saw it, the walls were sun-bleached, the floors uneven, and the view breathtaking. Mountains that rolled like distant waves, a sky so wide you felt like it could swallow your worries whole. Now, I was preparing to hand it over. I sat at my desk late into the evenings, running my fingers over the deed papers, rereading every line like it was a love letter. My attorney, Denise, a sharp-eyed woman who didn't do small talk, reviewed the documents over her glasses. You're sure about this? She asked one afternoon, tapping the corner of the transfer forms. It's a sizable asset, Rachel. You could sell it and pocket a life-changing check. I shook my head. It's not about the money. Ben's always dreamed of raising a family in a house like that. Peaceful, safe, I just want to give him that start. Denise sighed. You're a rare breed, Whitmore. I just want something in this family to go right. She slid the papers back to me with a nod. Then let's make it official. I added Ben's name to the documents, Monica's too. That part stung more than I expected. I hesitated before writing it, pen hovering over her name. But I told myself this was for Ben, for his future. For the family we used to daydream about building side by side, in neighboring houses with a garden fence in between. My assistant, Nora, helped me gather the final property photos for the surprise reveal. I'd planned it all out. The framed print of the house tied with a velvet ribbon, the envelope with the notarized deed folded neatly inside, and a note that simply read, "Welcome home. I want him to start his family in a place filled with love," I told Nora one morning, blinking faster than I liked to admit. She gave me a look that was half admiration, half worry. "You're giving them something sacred, Rachel. I just hope they know what it's worth." I smiled, but something in my chest tensed. I'm not doing it for gratitude, I'm doing it because it's right. But deep down, I think I wanted something. Not praise, not applause, just inclusion. To know that when Ben crossed the threshold of that house, he wouldn't leave me behind. Some nights I'd drive up there just to sit on the porch and feel the wind off the ridgeline. The renovations were nearly done. Fresh paint, new fixtures, hand-laid stone around the fireplace. I imagined Ben and Monica having breakfast in the sun-drenched kitchen. I imagined future nieces or nephews running barefoot across the creaky floorboards. It hurt sometimes, because I couldn't imagine myself there with them. Still, I pushed that feeling down. Hard. Instead, I poured every ounce of myself into making the gift unforgettable. I booked a local bluegrass trio to play at the rehearsal dinner, planned the slideshow of Ben's childhood photos, us in muddy overalls, building a fort out of sticks and stubbornness. I even called the caterer myself, triple-checked the guest count, and made sure there was a dairy-free dessert option for Monica. Because that's what you do when you love someone. You make room. Even when it costs you. 1 week before the wedding, I was sitting in the cafe across from my studio, sipping a lukewarm latte and thumbing through my calendar when I had the idea. It came softly, like most dangerous ideas do. What if I stayed with them for a few days? It wasn't unusual. Ben and I used to crash at each other's places all the time. Besides, I told myself it could be nice. A few days together before the chaos. One last breath of normalcy. He'd been so grateful about the house. Maybe this could help us reconnect the way we used to be before seating charts and dress fittings and a fiancé who couldn't stand me. I called Ben right away. He picked up on the second ring. "Hey, what's up?" I smiled into the phone. "Hey, so I was thinking, with everything going on next week, maybe I could come stay with you too for a few days. You know, hang out, help out, soak in the pre-wedding vibes." There was a beat of silence, and I could hear the smile stretch across his voice. "Are you serious? Ratch, that would be amazing. Monica's been stressed and I've been up to my neck in seating chart drama. Having you there would be perfect, perfect." I let myself believe he meant that. Monica, however, had a different reaction. When I arrived at their townhouse 2 days later, suitcase in one hand, wine bottle in the other, she answered the door wearing a face that didn't bother to fake surprise. She said, stepping aside, "You're early." I gave her my brightest smile. "Only by 20 minutes, thought I'd beat the traffic." I handed her the bottle. "Pinot Noir, thought we could toast to the countdown." She held it like it was ticking. "Lovely." Ben appeared from behind her, grinning and already pulling me into a hug. "I'm so glad you're here, it's going to be great having you around this week." Monica's smile was taut, barely there. "Yes, great." Inside, the townhouse was tidy, minimalist, sterile. Everything in neutral tones, beige, cream, sand. It was the kind of place where laughter felt too loud, like it might scratch the furniture. I unpacked in the guest room. Monica hadn't bothered to clear out her clutter from the closet, but I made do. I wasn't here to be comfortable, I was here to connect, to be helpful, to show them that I wasn't a threat. That night I cooked dinner. My mom's lasagna recipe. It made the place smell like home. Ben was all jokes and nostalgia. "It smells like being 10 again." Monica barely picked at her plate. "It's rich," she said, setting her fork down, "but thanks." I smiled politely and cleared the dishes while they talked about linens and lighting. Later, as I dried my hands at the sink, Monica came up behind me. "You really didn't have to stay, you know," she said, her voice even polite. "Everything's already under control." I glanced at her, matching her tone. "I know, I just thought it'd be nice to have some family around." "Support, you know," she shrugged, her expression unreadable. "Sure." Then she walked away and I realized something chilling. She wasn't just uncomfortable with me, she was watching me, measuring, waiting. Still, I wasn't deterred. The next morning I offered to pick up their dry cleaning, helped Monica address envelopes for last-minute guests, and even complimented her taste in centerpieces. Ben noticed. "You two are doing okay, huh?" he asked one night as we sat on the back porch with drinks. I gave him a sideways smile. "I'm trying, I want her to know I'm not the enemy." "She'll see that," he said confidently. "She just needs time." Maybe, or maybe she'd already made up her mind. Still, I stayed, I smiled, I helped, I let her little jabs slide, because I was holding onto something stronger than pride. Hope. Hope that the woman marrying my brother could learn to see me as more than competition. Hope that love, when given freely, would come back around in time. By the third day of my stay, the temperature in the townhouse had dropped, but not the kind you measure with a thermostat. It was in Monica's silence, in her clipped mms, in the way she set down her coffee mug each morning like punctuation at the end of an invisible sentence. She barely acknowledged me. No good mornings. No thank yous when I brought her latte from her favorite place. Just a cool nod if that. At first, I thought maybe she was just overwhelmed. Weddings can turn anyone into a bundle of nerves and control issues. But this felt deliberate. She left the room when I entered, closed doors that didn't need closing. During dinner one night, she scrolled on her phone while Ben and I talked about our childhood trips to Chimney Rock, not even pretending to listen. So, I said lightly, attempting to include her, have you ever been hiking around the Blue Ridge? She didn't look up. No, not really into dirt and bugs. Ben chuckled awkwardly. Moan's more of a spa girl. Oh, I replied, keeping my tone neutral. That's fair. Later that night, as we loaded the dishwasher, I finally asked Ben, is she always like this? He glanced toward the hallway to make sure she wasn't nearby, then sighed. She's just particular, don't take it personally. That's a little hard to do when she doesn't look me in the eye, I muttered. I've been walking on eggshells all week. Ben rubbed the back of his neck. She's nervous about the wedding, Ratch, and she thinks you don't like her. I turned to him. What gave her that idea? The way I offered to run her errands, or how I made dinner every night, or maybe how I've been quietly ignoring every passive-aggressive comment she's dropped since I walked through the door. He didn't answer right away. Look, he finally said, I know it's been tense, but I'm asking you just hang in there. For me, I'll talk to her, I promise. I nodded, but inside, something small curled tight in my chest. He saw the smoke but not the match in her hand. The next morning I made pancakes, a peace offering. I used her fancy gluten-free mix and even arranged berries on top like those overproduced brunch photos she liked on Instagram. She walked in, looked at the plate on the counter and said, that's sweet, but I already ate. Ben came in right behind her, kissed her cheek, then sat beside me with a grateful grin. These look amazing. She said nothing. It wasn't what she did, it was how she did it. Every silence was a rejection in disguise. Every brush of her shoulder when passing me in the hallway felt colder than the mountain wind outside. By afternoon, I'd had enough. I texted Ben from the guest room, me, still trying, but she's making it really hard. A few minutes later, he poked his head into the room. She's not mad at you, he said. She's just not good with people she doesn't fully trust yet. I stared at him, my patience stretched thin. I'm not a stranger, Ben, I'm your sister. He stepped inside and sat on the edge of the bed. I know, and she knows that, she just doesn't show things the way we do. Yeah, I said quietly, I've noticed. He reached out and squeezed my hand. Give it time, please. And because it was him and because I had promised, I nodded again. One more time. But later that evening, as I passed Monica in the hallway, I saw it, the smirk she didn't hide quickly enough. It wasn't nerves, it wasn't awkwardness. It was a game, and I was being maneuvered. The air in the townhouse had thinned. It was like walking through fog laced with glass, quiet but sharp. By the fifth morning, the pattern was set. Monica ignored, Ben mediated, I smiled through my teeth. I told myself I could manage one more day. Maybe two, but something had shifted. And then came the moment. The one that stripped away the nice, the careful, the I'm just here to help act I'd been playing. It was early. Ben had already left to meet the efficient. I padded into the kitchen in leggings and an oversized sweatshirt, hair still damp from a shower, holding my favorite mug, the one with the chipped handle I'd brought from home. Monica sat at the island, in silk pajamas and full makeup at 8:03 a.m., scrolling her phone. She didn't look up. Morning, I said, trying again. She kept scrolling. I opened the cabinet to grab a bowl when she said it. Don't you have your own place to be? The words were casual, tossed like lint, but they landed heavy. I turned slowly. Excuse me, Monica didn't glance up. You've been here almost a week, I just thought maybe you had your own space you'd prefer. It wasn't a question, it was a warning wrapped in silk. I set the bowl down gently. Is that your polite way of saying I'm not welcome? She finally met my gaze, her lips curled slightly. I just don't think this is your moment. My moment. I stared at her, pulse ticking in my ears. This is Ben's moment, I said. Which means it's my family's moment too. Monica gave a short, breathy laugh. You really do see everything through that lens, don't you? Like this is still your house, your story, your role to play. Before I could answer, footsteps echoed down the hall. Ben, he walked in, wind-blown and smiling. Hey, you two up already? Monica straightened in her chair like nothing had happened. We were just chatting. I stayed quiet. Ben noticed. His smile faltered just slightly. He looked at me, then at her, then back again. You good? He asked me gently. I wanted to say no. I wanted to say she's pushing me out and you don't see it, but I swallowed it. Fine, I lied, just tired. He reached for the coffee pot. It's the final stretch, we just have to get through the next few days. I gave him a smile so fake it hurt. Right. Monica pushed her chair back, slow and smooth, and glided past me. She didn't say another word. Just that same faint perfume of victory trailing in her wake. Once she was gone, Ben leaned against the counter. What's going on? I shook my head. Nothing, it's not worth starting something 2 days before your wedding. He studied me. If she said something, I said it's fine. Because what was the point? I knew what he'd say. She's stressed. She doesn't mean it like that. She's trying, except she wasn't. And he wasn't seeing it. Or maybe he was and just didn't want to. That afternoon, I took a walk around the block. Just to breathe. Just to remind myself I still had space in the world. And when I returned, Monica's door was shut. Mine was cracked open. I found one of my framed photos of Ben and me as kids moved from the nightstand to the closet floor. No explanation. No note. Just a message written in absence. You don't belong here. The next morning, I woke up to muffled voices. Not the usual soft chatter of a couple getting ready for the day, but hushed, intense murmurs that leaked under the door like smoke. I sat up, heart already beating faster. From the hallway, I heard Monica's voice, trembling but loud enough for me to catch every word. I didn't want to say anything, Ben, but I don't feel safe with her here. My stomach dropped. I swung my legs out of bed and moved to the door, cracking it just enough to hear more. She went through my drawers, Monica whispered, her voice soaked in performative distress. I didn't know how to bring it up, but yesterday I found my journal out of place. And she made this face when she tasted my casserole, like it was poison or something. She said it was edible at best. That was a lie. I had said nothing about the food. I'd barely taken 2 polite bites before quietly clearing the table, trying not to make waves. I opened the door fully, stepped into the hall. Monica spotted me instantly. She jumped, wiping beneath her eyes like she'd just finished a tragic monologue. Oh, I didn't know you were up. Ben turned to me, his face tight with concern. Rachel, did you go through her things? What? I blinked. Absolutely not. Monica sniffled, clutching the edge of the kitchen counter. I hate that it's come to this. I tried to be kind. I really did. But I don't feel comfortable with her staying here. I looked between the two of them, stunned. Ben, you know I'd never go through someone's things. That's not who I am. His eyes flicked toward Monica, then back to me. She's upset, Ratch. Can you blame her if she's feeling? If she's feeling what? I cut in. Like she finally found the excuse she's been waiting for. Monica gasped softly, one hand at her throat. Why are you doing this? I asked her directly. You've made it clear since I arrived that you don't want me here, but this. I motioned to her crocodile tears. This is next level. She turned away, pressing her palm to her forehead. I knew this would happen. I knew she'd twist it. Ben stepped in. Okay, enough, both of you. I took a breath, trying to steady the fire behind my ribs. If you really believe I'd go through your fiancé's things, then say it, Ben. Say you think I'm that person. He opened his mouth, but no words came. Instead, Monica sniffed again and said quietly, maybe it's best if she doesn't stay here anymore. I stared at Ben. He looked torn, visibly uncomfortable, like a man watching the bridge between 2 worlds crack beneath his feet. But he didn't defend me. He didn't say, of course she can stay. He didn't say, Monica, maybe you're overreacting. He just stood there, so I turned to Monica, my voice calm now. I wasn't going to let her see me flinch. Why are you doing this? She blinked, eyes suddenly wide and innocent. I'm just telling the truth. Ben touched my arm gently. Let's not fight, please. We're so close to the wedding. I looked down at his hand, then back at Monica. She had won that round, not with proof, not with truth, but with performance. And she knew it. I needed air. Real air, the kind that doesn't sit heavy with the scent of perfume and pretense. So I walked barefoot out the back door, letting the screen slam behind me. Their tiny fenced yard was nothing but patchy grass and 2 weather-beaten lawn chairs, but it felt like freedom compared to the pressure cooker I'd just stepped out of. A minute later, the door creaked again. Ben. He came out quietly, hands in his hoodie pockets, the same way he did when we were kids and he'd broken something important, usually mine. I didn't turn around. Rachel, he started, stopping behind me. She's just feeling overwhelmed. This whole week's been. I'm not doing this, I interrupted, arms folded. I'm not going to sit in your backyard and listen to excuses for her behavior, not again. He was silent. I turned then, slowly, meeting his eyes. Do you believe I went through her things? His brows pulled together, but he didn't answer. That silence burned more than any accusation. I didn't, I said firmly. I didn't touch her things, I didn't insult her food, and I sure as hell haven't made her feel unsafe. My voice trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the betrayal crawling up my throat. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. I know you wouldn't hurt anyone, I know that. But, he hesitated. But she's scared, Ratch, and I have to take her seriously. Even when she lies, I shot back. Even when it's me she's lying about, Ben looked pained. You're not seeing it from both sides. There aren't two sides to this, I said, stepping forward. There's the truth, and then there's Monica's version of it. Okay, but it's her home too now, he replied, his voice quieter. And if she says she feels uncomfortable, because I breathe too loud, because I exist in her peripheral vision, I laughed bitterly. You think this is about some casserole critique, Ben, this is a setup. He didn't argue, he didn't confirm either, just that awful pause. I know you, I said, softer now. You've always been the guy who could spot a fake smile from across the room, so why are you pretending not to see this? I'm not pretending, he murmured. I don't know what to do, I love you and I love her, and this feels impossible. My throat clenched. I've been nothing but generous, I said, my voice raw. I plan to gift you a house, Ben. I've bent over backward to make her feel welcome, even when she's treated me like a weed growing in her wedding bouquet. He blinked. What house? I froze. I hadn't meant to say that, not yet. Forget it, I muttered, stepping back. Ratch. His face was etched with confusion. What house? Doesn't matter, I said, walking toward the door. You're not ready to see what's in front of you anyway. He reached for my arm gently. I believe you, okay, I do. But not enough to say it out loud, I said without turning. That's the part that hurts. And with that, I left him standing in the backyard, between the creaky lawn chairs and the ugly truth. Back inside, Monica was curled on the couch like an exhausted victim in a bad movie. I walked past her without a word. Because if she wanted me gone, I was starting to think maybe she'd get her wish. But not the way she expected. The rehearsal dinner was held at Monica's parents' sprawling estate, tucked behind tall hedges and even taller egos in an upscale neighborhood just outside Asheville. I arrived right on time, hair curled, dress pressed, a carefully chosen necklace that used to be our mom's glinting softly at my collarbone. I held the wrapped gift box close to my side. Inside was the framed photo of the Mountain View house, the deed folded beneath it like a quiet promise. Tonight was supposed to be the moment I revealed the future I'd been building for Ben and Monica, the home I was about to gift them. A legacy born from love, not bloodlines or dowries, but real, stubborn, sisterly love. But when I walked into the candlelit backyard, with the strings of fairy lights and perfectly aligned folding chairs, I knew there wasn't a seat for me. Literally. There were place cards at every setting, and not a single one said Rachel. I scanned the long table once, twice. Monica spotted me then. She stood near the head of the table, her dress a tailored shade of champagne. She tilted her head slightly, gave me that polished, artificial smile that never quite reached her eyes. Oh, she said, feigning surprise, you made it. Of course I did, I replied, forcing a smile. I wouldn't miss it. Ben walked over, wine glass in hand. Look great, he said, distracted, eyes scanning the seating chart pinned near the bar. Thanks, I said quietly. Hey, quick question, where should I sit? Monica turned toward us, her voice rising just enough for the nearby guests to hear. Oh gosh, I thought we had one extra seat, but I guess we miscounted. She gave an apologetic shrug. You can pull up a chair, or maybe there's space on the patio steps. The words echoed in my ears. Space on the steps. I looked at Ben, waiting for him to speak. To say, that's ridiculous, we'll rearrange, to defend me. But his mouth opened and then closed. He looked at Monica, then at the guests already watching, and he said nothing. Nothing, that was it, the final match. I reached into my purse, pulled out my phone, and calmly tapped open my email app. Then, just loud enough to be heard over the murmuring clinks of glasses and polite laughter, I said, cancel the wedding gift. The $1 million house. Silence. Utter, rippling silence. Even the soft background music seemed to pause. Monica's smile faltered, her wine glass frozen halfway to her lips. "What?" she asked, her voice suddenly dry. Ben blinked, eyes narrowing. "Wait, what house?" I looked at him. Looked at both of them, then slowly held out the box in my hands. "This was supposed to be your surprise tonight," I said, my voice steady. "The deed, the house in Black Mountain. Newly renovated. Yours. A gift from your sister who apparently belongs on the patio steps." I let the box hang there in the air for a beat longer. Then I lowered it, slowly. "I don't reward cruelty," I said, "and I don't stay where I'm clearly not wanted." Ben's face went pale. Monica's glass clattered against the table as she set it down too fast. The guests, half frozen in their seats, whispered behind linen napkins and wine stems. "I hope the rehearsal was everything you dreamed," I added with a faint smile. "Because there won't be a housewarming." Then I turned. Walked calmly past the stunned faces, past the garden lanterns, past the champagne shimmer of the night. Monica tried to erase me. I didn't look back. But I didn't need to, I'd already made my point. The silence was still hanging in the air when I left. That dense, electric kind of quiet that follows a lightning strike. I didn't have to slam a door or raise my voice. My words had landed harder than any scream could, but I wasn't 3 steps off the lawn before I heard my name. "Rachel." Ben's voice cut through the murmurs like a blade. I stopped at the edge of the driveway, heels sinking slightly into the soft earth. I turned slowly. He was walking toward me fast, face pale, panic blooming behind his eyes. "What house?" he demanded again, breath hitching. "Ratch, what house?" I tilted my head. "The one on Ridgeview, the Mountain View place. I've been renovating it for over a year. It was going to be yours. A surprise gift for the two of you, deed in both your names." I held up my phone. "Or at least it was, until your fiancé decided I was worth less than a folding chair." His mouth opened, closed, opened again. He looked stunned. "You were giving us a house," I nodded, calm now. "You said you wanted to build your family with love. I believed you. I thought I could help you start with something real." He ran a hand through his hair, stepping back like he needed physical distance from the weight of what I'd just said. "You never mentioned—" "It was a gift, Ben," I interrupted, sharper than I meant to. "Not a transaction. But gifts don't survive disrespect. That's not generosity, that's masochism." Behind him, I could see the dinner unraveling. Monica stood near the head of the table, surrounded by a stunned half-circle of guests. Her mother whispered furiously in her ear. A cousin looked down, pretending to scroll on his phone. One of the bridesmaids had quietly slid her plate aside, as if even the chicken wanted to leave. Monica suddenly burst forward. "Wait, you're canceling a house because of a chair?" Her voice trembled, loud and shrill, pulling every eye back to us. "No," I said slowly, turning to face her as she approached. "I'm canceling it because of everything, because of the lies, the manipulation, the weeks of cruelty you've served with a side of performative innocence. Tonight was just the icing." She laughed, but it was hollow. "This is insane, you're overreacting. I was trying to include you, Ben. Tell her." Ben held up a hand. "Monica, stop." She blinked. He looked at her, something shifting in his face. "You told me she insulted your food, went through your things, that she was making you uncomfortable." He shook his head. "But you made her feel small in our home and now here in front of everyone." He gestured toward the table where their guests still sat, stunned. "You embarrassed her, you embarrassed me." "I didn't mean," she began, her voice breaking. "You meant to push her out," he said, sharper now. "And you did, but in doing that you pushed out the one person who's always been on my side." Monica's eyes welled with tears. "You're taking her side." "No," I said gently. "He's finally seeing there was only ever one side, the truth." She shook her head. "You're just trying to ruin this wedding." I exhaled, calm despite the storm. If it was strong enough to last, nothing I said would ruin it. "But you exposed yourself tonight. I just stopped pretending." The crowd at the table had grown quiet again, but I could feel their ears clinging to every word. Monica stood there frozen, hands trembling, tears finally breaking loose. Ben didn't touch her, didn't comfort her, didn't even look like he recognized the woman in front of him. Instead, he turned to me, something like shame in his expression. "I didn't know," he said. "I should have listened sooner." I gave a small smile, tired but honest. "You weren't ready, now you are." And with that, I walked back to my car, box still in hand, head held high. It was the first time in weeks I felt lighter, like I'd finally stepped out of a room I was never supposed to be in. In the days after the rehearsal dinner imploded, I kept my phone on silent, not out of pettiness, but because silence was the only thing I had left that still belonged to me. Of course, Monica didn't take the hint. It started with flowers. Expensive ones arriving at my studio in tall glass vases, dripping with apology and sweet-smelling guilt. Then came the handwritten note. "I'm sorry for the misunderstanding. I was emotional and overwhelmed. Let's not let a silly night ruin everything. Misunderstanding. Silly night, I didn't respond. The next day, she showed up in person. I was loading framed prints into the back of my Jeep for a weekend shoot when she appeared at the sidewalk, dressed down in leggings and a hoodie, like this was some casual drop-in, not the aftermath of a social disaster. "Rachel," she called out. Her voice was soft, almost meek. "Please, I need to talk to you." I didn't stop what I was doing. "Ben isn't here." "I'm not here for him, I'm here for you." She stepped closer. I could see the glint of moisture in her eyes, the same performance from the backyard scene, except now it was aimed directly at me. "I messed up," she said. "I let things get out of control. I thought you were trying to take him away from me. I felt like you were inserting yourself into our life." I stared at her, saying nothing. "I panicked," she continued. "And I said things, I lied, I know, but please, please don't ruin this for us." There it is. The truth, but not remorse, just desperation. I finally looked her in the eye. "You didn't panic, Monica. You calculated. You lied, you isolated, and you manipulated the one person who would have walked through fire for you. And now the fire's here." She opened her mouth to say something, maybe to beg, maybe to bargain, but I stepped back and opened my car door. "I think we're done," I said calmly. "You can go." She stared for a second longer, blinking fast, then turned and stormed off, leaving a trail of wounded pride in her wake. I didn't expect what happened next. That night Ben showed up at my door, and for the first time in weeks he didn't look confused or conflicted or lost, he looked done. "She slapped me," he said, standing in the frame of my front door, rain on his jacket, "in front of my cousin because I didn't answer her fast enough." I stared at him, stunned. "She what?" He nodded slowly. Everyone saw, and no one said a word after, just silence, like they knew it was coming. I opened the door wider. "Come in." He stepped inside, wet shoes squeaking against the floor. "I called it off," he said. "The wedding, everything, her parents are furious, she blames you." "Of course she does," I muttered. Ben looked around my living room like it was the first safe place he'd been in days. "I thought I was building a life," he said. "Turns out I was just building around red flags and hoping they'd turn into walls." I didn't say I told you so. I didn't need to. Hopped onto my couch, head in his hands. "I should have listened. So many times, you were right." I sat beside him and spoke quietly. "I didn't want to be right, Ben. I just wanted you to be happy with someone who didn't treat your family like a threat." He looked at me and there it was, that old, loyal Ben, the one who used to guard my lunch money and build snow forts with me in the yard. "I'm so sorry, Ratch, for not standing up for you sooner," I nodded once. "I know," he exhaled. "What about the house?" he asked finally. I smiled just a little, still off the table for now. He laughed softly, relieved maybe that I could still joke. "She really hit you?" I asked again, incredulous. "Right in front of Brian," he said. His mouth fell open like a cartoon character. I shook my head. "Well, at least the reception would have been memorable." We both laughed quietly but real this time. Weeks passed. The buzz around the cancelled wedding faded fast, like all small-town gossip, replaced by newer drama, fresher scandals. Monica disappeared from our lives without a trace. No more flowers, no more notes, no more tears on porches that didn't belong to her. And one crisp Saturday morning, Ben showed up again. This time, he didn't look like someone climbing out of wreckage. He looked like himself. Hoodie, jeans, 2 coffees in hand. "I come bearing peace," he said with a crooked smile, holding one out to me. "Depends," I said, leaning on the doorframe. "Is it extra cream, no sugar?" He raised his brows. "Do you even have to ask?" I took the cup, stepped aside. "Then peace accepted." We sat out back on my tiny porch, looking out toward the trees. The leaves had started to turn amber and rust crawling slowly through the green. "I feel like I've aged 5 years," Ben said, stretching his legs. "But at least I can breathe again." "That's the beauty of fresh air and no emotional landmines," I replied. He laughed. "You know, Mom would have hated her." I snorted into my coffee, only because she would have seen right through her in 2 minutes. Ben was quiet for a moment, then glanced at me. "I should have seen it too. I was so caught up in the idea of building something. I didn't realize who I was building it with. You were in love, I said gently. Or something close enough that you wanted it to be real. He nodded. Yeah. But that's not what love should feel like. A comfortable silence settled between us. And then, right on cue, my front door opened. Leela stepped out. She was in sneakers and an oversized cardigan, her curly hair piled messily on her head. She carried 2 mugs and a hopeful smile. I brought backup coffee, she said brightly. But I see I've been beaten. Ben stood a little too quickly. Leela grinned. Still alive, I see. Barely, he joked. Thanks to your friend here. She handed me a second mug. Just in case he forgot the cream, I smirked. She knows me better than most. Leela pulled up a chair and joined us, the 3 of us sitting like old friends rediscovering a rhythm we hadn't realized we'd missed. Ben looked between us, eyes twinkling. You two still do movie marathons. Every month, Leela said, but only the good stuff, villain origin stories and terrible rom-coms. He leaned back in his chair, smiling for real now. Sounds perfect. We laughed for a while, the way we hadn't in months. No tension, no manipulation, just ease. At one point, Ben turned to me and said softly, "Let's build new things from here, yeah." I reached for his hand, squeezed it gently. From the ground up. Exactly 1 year later, I stood barefoot in the soft grass behind the house on Ridgeview, watching my brother wait at the altar under a canopy of string lights and mountain sky. The same house that nearly broke us. The same place that once sat wrapped in ribbon in the back of my car, just waiting for the right moment. Only this time, it was the right moment. Ben looked calm, joyful even, not the shaky, hopeful man I'd seen a year ago. This time his smile was certain. Leela stepped into the garden, her arm looped through her father's, her curls pinned with delicate white flowers. The guests turned to watch, but I didn't. I watched. Ben watched, his face light up in that soft, stunned way that only comes when you know you finally got it right. Their ceremony was simple. Laughter and tears flowed freely. Vows exchanged with the kind of words that don't need decoration, just truth. And when they were pronounced husband and wife, the garden burst into applause. I clapped too, but there was something else swelling in my chest. Relief, closure, pride. Later, as twilight settled and the fireflies began to glow, I found Ben standing near the edge of the porch steps, sipping a drink and staring out at the horizon. I walked over and stood beside him. "Not a bad view," I said. He grinned. "I still can't believe this is ours." "Well," I said, reaching into my purse, "now it really is." I handed him a small white envelope. He looked confused for a second, then slowly opened it. Inside was the final deed, his name and Leela's, the house fully transferred, no conditions, no speeches. His eyes widened. "Ratch, it was always meant for this version of you," I said. "The one who knows what love actually looks like and what it doesn't." He looked at me, voice thick. "I don't even know what to say." "Just take care of it," I said with a small smile. "Fill it with laughter, with arguments that end in understanding, with people who know how to stay." He nodded slowly, his throat moving as he swallowed hard. "We will, I promise." Leela came over then, slipping her hand into his. She looked between us, sensing the weight of the moment. "Everything okay?" I nodded. "Everything's exactly right." We toasted under the fairy lights, just the 3 of us. No stage, no performance, just the quiet beauty of what survived. And as the night wore on, the house came alive. Children's giggles echoed off the porch. Someone turned on music, and Leela danced barefoot on the grass with her friends. Ben twirled her once, twice, laughing like the world finally fit. I stood back, watching from the edge, and I felt peace. Because in the end, Monica didn't lose because I fought her. She lost because she didn't understand that family isn't something you conquer, it's something you honor. And Ben, he finally chose right. As the moon rose and guests raised their glasses, I thought about all that had been torn down to build this. It was worth every bruise, every silence, every step out the door that led me here. And as I turned back toward the porch, I whispered to myself, some people show their worth by losing everything they didn't deserve. The house was always meant to be a home. And in the end, it became one. Because love, the kind that stays, always finds its way back. If this story made you feel something, anger, hope, vindication, tell me in the comments. And let me know, where are you watching from?